I always knew I was the spare chair at the table, the one they'd move aside if someone more important needed a seat. But this time, they didn't even bother to move me aside. They just told me not to come at all. It was a Tuesday, mid-morning. I was sitting at my kitchen counter, sipping lukewarm coffee and half reading an email when my phone rang. It was Mom. She never calls unless something's wrong, or about to be. I answered casually. "Hey, everything okay?" She cleared her throat. Then came this strange pause, like she was rehearsing something. That's when I knew. "We've been organizing the cabins for the retreat," she said, "and there just isn't enough space this year." I didn't say anything. She kept going. "You know how many people are coming. Rachel and her husband, obviously. The twins. Uncle Jim's bringing his girlfriend. We even had to shift things around for Grandpa." Still, I stayed silent. So she added, almost like it would soften the blow, "We figured it'd just be easier for you not to make the trip this time. Less stress. Easier." For who? I could hear my own breath in that moment. It was shallow. Tight. "Right," I said finally. "Makes sense." She hesitated, but not for long. "Glad you understand," she said, before hanging up like she'd just rescheduled a dentist appointment. I stared at my phone, then at the empty chair across from me. The silence in my apartment suddenly felt louder than anything she'd just said. Let me back up for a second. I'm 33, no husband, no kids, no dramatic meltdown, no scandal, just quiet. I work from home. I keep to myself. I read, I cook, and apparently I take up too much space, even when I'm barely present. Rachel's the opposite. My older sister. She's magnetic, social, everything a parent brags about at dinner parties, and she loves that role. She leans into it like it was custom made for her. Family retreat? That's her runway. I'm just the extra baggage. I wasn't. Always this cynical. But over the years, there were too many misunderstandings. Too many holidays where I got the couch, or the silent treatment, or the blame for things I never did. I used to fight it. I don't anymore. I'd barely put my phone down when Uncle Jim called. He's the only one who ever tries to keep the peace. He didn't waste time. "I just heard about the retreat," he said, voice low. I didn't agree with it. "Thought you should know." I didn't say anything at first, he added. "I offered to switch cabins, but your mom insisted, said it'd change the flow." I almost laughed. "The flow," I repeated. He sighed. "I don't get it either. You've always been welcome with me, you know that." I said thanks, but the words felt dry in my mouth. Kindness from one person doesn't really soften rejection from the rest. After we hung up, I sat there for a while, just staring out my window, watching a couple argue on the sidewalk, watching the sky fade from gray to blue. That was when it hit me. This wasn't just about the cabin. It wasn't about logistics or head counts or space. It was about something deeper. They didn't want me there. Not because there wasn't enough room, but because I didn't fit in their picture. And that was the moment I decided I wasn't going to just sit this one out. If they didn't make space for me, I'd carve out space they couldn't ignore. One way or another, some families lift you up, others make you shrink just to survive in the same room. I don't remember the exact moment I started to feel like I didn't belong. It wasn't one huge betrayal. It was 1,000 small cuts, dressed up as traditions, jokes, or what's best for everyone. Growing up, I was the quiet one. The reader. The girl who colored inside the lines and got praised by teachers, but never quite by her own parents. My dad, Walter, was a man of few words. Cold ones when he did speak. He used to pat Rachel on the back and say, "That's my girl," when she won anything, a race, an award, even attention. With me, He'd glance up from his newspaper and say, "You could have smiled more," or "Don't be so dramatic." It didn't matter that I got straight A's or that I spent hours helping Mom in the kitchen without being asked. What mattered was that I didn't sparkle like Rachel. Rachel was untouchable, blonde, loud, the kind of person who could trip over her own feet and still get applauded for the landing. People just liked her, and she knew it. She'd lean into every compliment, every photo op, every chance to remind everyone how perfect her life was. And Mom? Denise? She didn't speak harshly, but her silences cut deeper. She had this way of tilting her head when I talked, like she was waiting for me to say something she could fix or dismiss. Once, I remember being 12, crying on the back porch, after Rachel had accidentally ruined my science fair model. I told Mom through sobs she did it on purpose. She knew what it meant to me. And Mom just said, "Rachel didn't mean to. Don't make a scene, Ava. You're not one of those girls, are you? One of those girls. Emotional, sensitive, inconvenient. That's what I became in their eyes. Not the daughter, the burden." Even Eli, my cousin, who used to be my safe place, started pulling away in high school. We'd spent summers building forts, whispering about our dreams, and hiding from the grown-ups. But once Rachel's popularity bled into every corner of our family, Eli shifted. He started hanging out with her crowd, laughing louder when she made fun of me. I still remember the 4th of July barbecue when I asked if he wanted to help me set up the old projector like we used to. He scratched the back of his neck and said, "Maybe later. I promised Rachel I'd help her with the playlist." He never came back. It was subtle over the years, the way people drifted toward her and away from me. Like Rachel was the sun, and I was just one of the shadows she cast. And now, all these years later, that phone call about the retreat felt like the final echo of a truth I'd spent my whole life swallowing. They didn't forget to invite me. They just decided not to. A couple days after Mom's call, I found out Rachel had invited 3 of her college friends to the retreat. 3. Not 1. 3. A mutual friend posted a photo on Instagram, all smiles, hiking boots, and champagne in those ridiculous metal tumblers. There was even a comment from Rachel. "Glad the whole crew made it this year. Wouldn't be the same without you girls that dar mountain magic." I stared at that screen for a long time. Wouldn't be the same without you girls. There was enough space. They just didn't want me taking any of it. I didn't cry. Not this time. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at my folded laundry, listening to the low hum of the fridge from the kitchen. And I just sat. It was like something in me stopped needing to prove anything. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even shocked. I was just done. That's the moment the shift happened. I didn't have a plan yet, but I knew this wasn't going to end with me staying home and pretending it didn't hurt. This time, I wasn't going to shrink to make space for them. I'd make space for myself, even if I had to burn down the illusion first. It wasn't the photo that broke me. It was the caption. 4 words. Nothing like family. And I wasn't in it. The morning it hit me, I was scrolling without really thinking, just a mindless habit, trying to feel connected to something, anything. Then I saw Rachel's post. Her, standing in front of the retreat cabin, glowing in that effortless way she always does. The background was the lake, the exact one I grew up around. My dad used to teach me how to skip stones there, back when he still looked at me like I existed. In the photo, Rachel had her arms thrown around people. Some I recognized. Beth, of course, her echo. Eli was there too, even after all these years. And then, people I didn't recognize. 3 women in trendy boots, 1 guy holding a ukulele. None of them were family. I stared at the caption for a long time. Nothing like family. There were tags on every face, except mine. It was like watching your own name being erased from your birth certificate. I don't remember breathing. I just remember this cold stillness. Then the memories started lining up, like soldiers I'd ignored for too long. I remembered the year I was 16 when we both entered a writing contest. I spent weeks drafting a short story, poured myself into every word. I showed it to Rachel, stupidly proud of what I'd done. 2 weeks later, at the award ceremony, she won first place. She was clutching a certificate with my plot. Same title, same twist ending. She smiled at me afterward like it was no big deal. "You always overthink stuff," she said. "I just polished it up." I remember trying to tell Mom, and her saying, "Why are you always so dramatic, Ava? Let your sister have her moment." Then there was the Thanksgiving. I had to sleep on the living room floor. Rachel had brought her new boyfriend, Logan, and apparently he needed a bed. Mom whispered, "It's just for one night. Don't be difficult," but I didn't sleep. Not with Logan walking around shirtless and smirking at me. Once, when no one was around, he looked at me and said, "I can see why Rachel never brings you up. You've got that weird, lonely vibe." I told Rachel what he said. She just rolled her eyes. "Don't be so sensitive," she muttered. "He's joking." Another time, my college graduation, the only ceremony I actually wanted them at, they didn't show. Not Dad, not Mom. Not even Rachel. I called the next morning and Mom said, "We had such a full weekend. You know how long the drive is." They sent flowers 3 days late. The card just said, "So proud of you. Love, us, us." That word again, like I was never included in it. And now, this photo, this post, that same ache. But this time it didn't feel like sadness. It felt like clarity. I sat at my kitchen table, phone still glowing in my palm, and just whispered to myself, "You're not crazy. You were never crazy." They made me doubt what I saw, what I felt. They trained me to silence myself before anyone else had to. But not anymore. I zoomed in on that photo, taking stock. Every smile, every hand on a shoulder, every empty space where I should have been. Beth was in the front, same as always, Rachel's little mirror. She'd been parroting Rachel's opinions since middle school. And Aunt Marlene? She'd always made sure to keep her jabs sugar-coated. "Your sister's such a firecracker," she'd say, right after telling me I looked tired or plain. She once told me during Christmas dinner, "You're very practical, Ava. You probably don't care about appearances." I was 15, wearing a navy sweater I bought with my own money, and yet I kept showing up, kept thinking maybe next time they'd notice me differently. But as I sat there now, studying the smiles of people who weren't even blood, invited into something I was cut out of, a new voice started forming in my mind. It wasn't soft, it was sharp, precise. I opened a blank document on my laptop, and I started writing names, not out of pettiness, out of truth. Rachel, Beth, Logan, Marlene, even Eli. People I once trusted, people who knew exactly how this retreat worked, who knew there was space, and stayed quiet. I wasn't spiraling. I was finally seeing the pattern. And this time, I wasn't going to let it keep repeating. They wanted to erase me? Fine. But I wasn't going to disappear quietly. Revenge didn't come to me in rage. It came in silence, like a curtain lifting after a long, bitter play. I didn't want to scream. I wanted the truth to land so quietly. They'd hear nothing else for the rest of their lives. The first move I made was unblocking Aunt Jo. She was always neutral, too anxious to confront the family, but never cruel. I sent her a short message. "Hey, just thinking ahead to next year. Do you know who handles the cabin reservations now?" She replied in under 5 minutes. "Oh, honey, Rachel's been handling them since your dad transferred the deed years ago. You planning on coming next year?" "I hope so." "Transferred the deed?" I stared at her message like it was written in a different language. Transferred the deed. That wasn't something Dad ever talked about, and I remembered Grandpa Roy saying, once, late at night over tea, that he wanted the cabin to belong to all his grandkids. He even joked, "You girls will probably fight over who gets the nicer bedroom, but at least you'll have a roof to do it under." That was right after Rachel had said something snide about me not bringing a date. Grandpa gave me a look I never forgot. Kind, but sharp. Like he knew I'd been bleeding from 1,000 invisible cuts. After I got Joe's message, I didn't reply. I just closed my phone and stared at the wall. I needed someone who knew property law. And secrets. So I reached out to Mason. Mason and I grew up 2 blocks apart. He was the kind of kid who built forts with real blueprints. Now he was a licensed property appraiser with more connections than most lawyers I know. He picked up on the second ring. "Hey, Ava, been a minute?" I told him everything. Well, almost everything. I left out the part about the Instagram post and my sleepless nights. I just said, I think my family erased me from something that was mine, and I need to find out if I'm right. He said, "Send me whatever you have. I'll look into it." 3 hours later, I got a call back. "The original deed," he said, "lists your grandfather as the sole owner, but he signed a revised version 10 years ago, just before he passed." I asked what changed. He paused. "Your name was on the original as a partial inheritor, but the revision only lists Walter, Denise, and Rachel." My stomach twisted. "And me?" He said, "You were removed." I didn't speak. He added, "There's no signature from you. No disclaimer. That's the part that's sketchy." The silence on my end said enough. Then I said, "I need proof." And Mason said, "I'll get you more than proof. I'll get you leverage." Next, I reached out to Noah, an ex, one of the good ones, the kind who still sent me memes on my birthday, even after we broke up. He worked in data security now, high-level stuff. I never thought I'd need a favor this big, but here I was. He agreed to help before I even finished explaining. "I always knew you were the sane one in that family," he said. "Send me their group chat names, emails, anything you have." He didn't ask for details, just passwords. 3 days later, I had the files in a locked folder, screenshots, timestamps, a full paper trail of how the deed had been updated. And even more than that, messages between my parents and Rachel discussing the retreat. 1. Message from Mom hit hardest. "Make sure Ava doesn't find out. She's so fragile. You know how she gets. So fragile." And yet here I was, holding all their secrets in a single folder. But I wasn't done. There was one more voice I needed. Claire, a family friend. She used to babysit us as kids. She was one of the few adults who ever spoke to me like I wasn't. Just Rachel's quiet shadow. She moved away years ago, but we stayed loosely connected. I sent her a message with no context. "Do you still talk to Beth?" Her reply, "Not really. Why?" So I told her. Every piece, the retreat, the lies, the deed. I even mentioned how Rachel used to talk about me behind my back. Claire responded with something that made my skin go cold. "She called you the family stain." I sat frozen. "Wait, what?" Claire sent a screenshot from an old group thread. Between her, Beth, and Rachel. Rachel had written, "I'm not dealing with Ava's weird energy this year. She always brings the mood down. She's like the family stain. You just learn to ignore it." That was the moment something in me locked into place. This wasn't about being forgotten. This was about being erased on purpose. But I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to argue or beg for a seat at a table they built without me. I was going to make them see me. So I made a plan. First, I called Rachel, pretended I was ready to move on. Her voice was all fake sunshine. "I'm so glad you're reaching out. I told Mom we should have handled that better." I played along. Said I understood, that I was just hurt, but not angry. She said, "You know how things get. Logistics, head counts, it wasn't personal." Then she added, "Honestly, I thought you'd feel out of place with the group. It's kind of a different vibe now. A different vibe." I smiled and told her I hoped the retreat went well, that I'd be thinking of her. Then I called Uncle A. Jim, invited him to lunch. Quiet place, just us. Over soup and awkward silence, I asked, "Did you know I was written out of the deed?" He looked up, stunned. "What?" I nodded. "I found the original, and the transfer. I never signed anything." He was quiet for a long time. Then he muttered, "I always wondered why your name disappeared. I just assumed you gave it up." Said, "I never even knew it was mine." His face said everything. That night I wrote a letter, printed it out, signed my full name. Then I attached it to a manila envelope containing everything, copies of the original deed, screenshots of their messages, and the legal documents Mason helped me draft. The final page was a short, handwritten note. It said, "There was always enough space. You just didn't want me in it." I scheduled a courier delivery for the last night of the retreat, during their closing dinner. The envelope would be handed directly to Rachel, in front of everyone, not with drama. Not with flames, just truth, and when she opened it, they'd all see exactly who I was and exactly what they'd lost. It didn't arrive with a bang, no shouting, no dramatic gasps, just a man in a blue courier jacket, handing Rachel a thick, sealed envelope in the middle of dinner. Exactly as I planned. They were gathered around the long wooden table, the one Grandpa Roy carved with his own hands. Candles lit, wine glasses half full, laughter echoing against cabin walls that weren't entirely theirs. I watched it unfold from my phone. Claire had sent a shaky video, shot from behind a wine glass. The envelope landed in front of Rachel like it didn't belong. Like I didn't belong. She smiled at first, tried to play it off. "Oh, what's this? Fan mail?" she joked, holding it up for the group. But when she opened it, the laughter cracked. There was a shift. Her face changed. She read the first few lines aloud, then stopped. Her voice caught. You could hear it, even through the grainy video. "It's legal," someone asked. "What do you mean?" She didn't answer. Instead, she stood up, walked away from the table, envelope still shaking in her hand. That's when my phone lit up. "Rachel, incoming." Call. I let it ring twice before answering. I didn't speak first. She did. "What the hell is this, Ava?" she snapped. "Some kind of sick prank?" Her voice was tight, furious. But underneath, I heard something new. Fear. I stayed calm. "I just wanted what was mine," I said. There was a long pause. She finally said, "You can't just show up like this. You embarrassed me in front of everyone." I almost laughed. "I didn't show up," I told her. But the truth did. She said nothing, so I added, "The cabin isn't yours. Never fully was. You removed me without my consent. That's forgery. Insurance is void. Your little party? Illegal." She tried to say something, but stopped herself. I heard someone yelling in the background, probably one of her guests asking if they were being kicked out. I didn't care. Said, "Enjoy the last night. The report's already been filed. Property inspection starts Monday." Then I hung up, and just like that, it was done. Later that night, my phone buzzed again. "Beth, I didn't know. I'm sorry." It wasn't much, but it was more than I expected. Then an email from Uncle Jim. Subject, "You were always watching." Message, "I always knew you. Saw more than you let on. Proud of you." That one stayed open on my screen for a long time. Then, near midnight, a notification. "Denise West sent you a message." No subject. No text. Just a blank message. No words. No apology. Just a ghost of contact. I didn't reply. I just looked out my window at the city lights below and whispered to myself. There was always enough space. They just didn't want me in it. Now, they'll never forget where I stood. I didn't celebrate. I didn't toast to my quiet victory. I just exhaled. For the first time in years, it felt like my lungs had space. A few weeks. Later, I finalized the paperwork, sold my share of the cabin to a third party, a quiet couple who valued silence over spotlight. Rachel tried to contest it, of course, but the papers were clean. Mason made sure of that. Uncle Jim emailed me again, said he hoped I'd consider joining next year's retreat. Said things would be different now, but I politely declined. No anger, no bitterness, just peace. I'm not interested in begging for room at someone else's table anymore. I've learned how to build my own. Last night, I sat cross-legged on the floor, staring at a map, circling places I've always wanted to go. Mountains, lakes, somewhere untouched by memory. I might start my own retreat next year. Just me. Or maybe not, but it'll be mine, and there'll always be enough space. Because some families build walls. I just learned how to walk around them.